Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 84. I'm Enigmaeus, and today we're testing two things. We're testing our borehead, and we're testing the Auto-Gyro and the Atlas Mark II to see whether or not it can keep the borehead level the way that we want it to. Now, if you're not clear what I mean when I say the Auto-Gyro, there's going to be a link to a video in the information box below this video that will show you the Auto-Gyro in just kind of a test scenario where we're spinning the rings to kind of highlight what's going on. The whole idea is we want to keep our borehead level so that as we start digging, even if the ship that's holding it isn't on perfectly even terrain, we don't have to worry about torque increasing on the tether that's holding the borehead. The deeper it goes, eventually resulting in a failure. The tether snaps and the whole thing becomes disconnected, and we've got to do some sort of salvage operation to get everything back. If we keep everything level from the beginning, it's just going to go straight down, and then when we're done, it can come straight back up. We don't have to worry about all of the differences in terrain causing problems. The whole idea with this connecting system that we're putting together is that the tether is what's used to lower the borehead. The tether is modified by grinders and welders. We can't assemble everything in one piece, otherwise the whole system becomes too complicated to try and, re-weld every time you move or something gets damaged. It's designed to be fairly modular. You can change up boreheads, you can change up whatever you like, connect them to the tether with a merge block and a connector like you see here, and you can head off and do whatever it is that you need to do. Now, we've actually raised the Atlas Mark II, the ship that's holding all this stuff, and it's hovering a little bit off the surface of the moon that we're working on here, because we've done some testing on the tether, and the tether is longer than it would normally be, and because it's longer than it would normally be, we can't fit the borehead under it the way we would normally like to. Now, this is the first example where you can see the Auto-Gyro at work. You can see the borehead seems to be at an odd angle. It's kind of relative to everything else until you look at the artificial horizon on the right-hand side of the screen. That's the artificial horizon for the Atlas Mark II. It's actually, the nose is dipped down. And as soon as we correct that, you'll actually see the borehead seems to be moving, but it's not really all that much. But what it's doing is it's staying on the level that it was. It's still nice and level, held there by the Auto-Gyro, but now the ship itself is level and everything looks to be lined up. That's a pretty big success for the Auto-Gyro system. The nice thing about the Auto-Gyro system is completely hands-off. It just does everything that it needs to do on its own. We don't have to make any manual corrections of our own. It just, gravity is all that it needs to keep things working the way that they need to work. And in this case, it's gravity on the moon. So if we can do it on the moon, we can do it on a planet. I'd say that's a pretty successful first test of this system, just because it kept the borehead level, and that's really all that it was necessary for it to do. Now, the next footage that you're going to see is actually sped up 4 times the normal speed, and that's because it was one of those things where you're watching it in game and you don't realize what's going on around you because it's all happening so slowly until all of a sudden things just suddenly don't seem to be working the way that they're supposed to anymore, and all you can do is sit there scratching your head wondering what the hell's going on. Now, this is from inside the ring holding the auto tether and all the other stuff under the Atlas Mark II, looking close up at the borehead and the mess that it's been making on the surface of the terrain. And this is because the nose of the ship keeps dipping down. And when it dips down, the borehead stays level, but it gets lowered. And when it gets lowered, it takes a more aggressive chunk out of the terrain that it's sitting above. And eventually we correct the pitch of the ship so that it's all nice and level, which causes the drill heads to be raised again, and then it kind of does its thing in a more predictable way until it starts to dip down again. And that's why it looks so uneven. It took me a while to figure out exactly what the hell was going on with this pattern that we're seeing on the ground and all the other things. And then I realized as I was looking at the footage after, kind of pushing through it back and forth, that you can actually see with this at 4 times the normal speed, the nose of the ship is dipping down. You can kind of notice it at this speed. You can't notice it at all at a regular speed. And as it dips down, you'll notice the drills will start to take a more and more aggressive cut out of the terrain until eventually we get so far down that the drills can't clear it out anymore, and they get caught up on the terrain itself until it actually starts moving the ship above, because that's the only thing that can move in this system. The drills can't continue rotating around in the circle that they've been following, so they just kind of do their thing, and the rotation causes the ship itself to slide forward. Good to have a powerful borehead, I suppose, but realistically speaking, it reinforces the importance of making sure that the ship is anchored to something. And like I say, that's the plan in the long term, is to have it so that you'll raise the ship up so that you can slide the borehead underneath and connect it to the tether, but then you'll have enough room that you can lower it down, anchor it with landing gears, and then the borehead can go to work and not be in this situation where the ship that's holding it is constantly in motion. You can see now as it comes around, this front drill head, or pair of drill heads, getting pretty aggressive, cutting down into the terrain. And then if you watch in the upper right sort of part of the circle, it'll come around and it'll eventually reach that spot where the drills aren't clearing out material anymore because they're too far down, and all that it can do is push the ship. Who knew? But again, the borehead itself is remaining level through the whole thing, so that's kind of a celebration. It's easy to lose sight of what's going on and panic when we see this stuff happening, because we didn't expect for the ship to be moving and completely setting the whole thing off from the center that we had. It could be viewed as a big problem, or it could be viewed as the beginnings of another great success. I say another because we're optimistic. But now this is an example of me intentionally adjusting the heading on the ship to see how the borehead responds. And you can see, as we move it around, it tends to want to shift and kind of follow the leveling based on gravity as opposed to the heading of the ship. The one thing with this ship is that it's incomplete, and it doesn't have enough thrusters in all directions to be able to kind of rotate. It can't roll without wanting to slip sideways in any kind of a gravity situation. So that's something that's very, very important for us to be aware of for the ship. And either I'll correct it with more thrusters, I'll make it more responsive with more gyros so that you can recover from that kind of slip a little bit easier, or we just be a little bit more careful about how much rolling that we do on the surface of planets and moons. But one of the things that really surprised the hell out of me that you're about to see is we start tilting. We're tilting the nose up again just to kind of see how things work, but we're going to start tilting it to the right. We're going to roll to the right, and we're going to start to slide, and then you're going to see what's going to happen when the ship is sliding and the drill head, the borehead, makes contact with the ground, and it gets kind of dragged along and very nearly smushed under the ship. I was concerned that something was about to snap off, because that to me is the most logical outcome when things start dragging along the ground like that. But because it's dragging from the tether, it's not going to be anywhere near that much of a problem. Here we go. We're slipping. We're already slipping, and we're going to roll a little bit more so that we can see what's going on. And then as soon as we start making contact with the ground on the borehead, that's when things just kind of blow my mind. Here's where we expect things to start snapping off, and no, it was perfectly fine. So there's no real practical application for that, I don't think. But it's kind of neat to have a system that we developed do useful things and not break in the process. So we're going to continue the testing. We're going to get everything finished with the ship itself. We're going to get a little bit more information from how the borehead is performing. And if you want to be notified when we show you that stuff, you can subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.